Speed techniques for operating without a mouse. Using only the keyboard is beneficial. Place hands. After all, you're just doing the same operations without using a mouse. First of all, why use a mouse? I'm going to talk about operating using the keyboard. Reach for the mouse. When you reach for the mouse, your hands move from the keyboard, wasting time. Learning keyboard operations saves time. Learn to use the ribbon with the keyboard. So, reach for the mouse. I use a trackball instead of a mouse, but it's similar. So when you reach for the mouse, this movement happens. Your hands are on the keyboard, and when you use the mouse, it happens. It's inefficient. But if you learn keyboard operations, you can do all tasks. This saves time. It may seem minor, but when you do it repeatedly, it becomes significant. So, let's reduce these actions. To operate without a mouse, you need to use the ribbon with the keyboard. And the third point is keyboard navigation in Windows. That's it. 3 steps. If you do this, it adds up. So let's reduce these operations. To do everything without a mouse, learn to use the ribbon with the keyboard. The third point is navigating Windows with the keyboard. Those are the 3 main things. Next, let's cover operating within the ribbon. To move in the ribbon, use Alt plus the letters shown. Let me demonstrate. I'll press Alt and you'll see H for home. So the third point is how to navigate within Windows using the keyboard. That's all there is to it. Just these 3 things. Next, let's go over how to operate within the ribbon. To navigate within the ribbon, you press the Alt key plus the letters that appear in order. Let me show you how it works. I'll press Alt and you'll see that H is associated with home. I'll press H. So here, where it says Style, you press L. Then, use the arrow keys to select the heading and hit Enter. This is how you navigate through the updates displayed by the Alt key and perform operations. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Let's do it together. First, please press the Alt key. You might not use the Alt key very often, but it should be right next to the spacebar. So, go ahead and press the Alt key once. Alright, let's go back to the beginning. Let's do it together. First, please press the Alt key. You might not use the Alt key very often, but it should be right next to the spacebar. So press the Alt key once. If the letters appear at the top, you're good to go. The letters displayed correspond to the keyboard. Since home is marked with an H, please input H. H. When you input H, you'll see that each operation in the Home tab has an alphabet assigned to it. So what about the heading? We were at the Style section, right? If you look closely at the Style area, you'll see that it says L. So go ahead and input L. So, once the options come up, you can navigate through them using the arrow keys, select the heading, and then hit Enter. This is how to navigate using the Alt key. Just by remembering this, you should be able to perform a lot of operations. For example, if you're working with a list, it combines with what we talked about earlier. You can hold down Shift and use the down arrow to select paragraphs, and then press Alt plus H to see what happens. It's showing N. So when you press N, the options will appear, and then you can use the arrow keys to select and hit Enter. You can use the Alt key in this way to perform operations within the Home tab. So the last part is how to navigate within Windows. Let's try launching the paragraph window. Move to the second line and activate the paragraph. Since we're at it, let's use the Alt key. Press Alt, then hit the Home tab. And you'll see that the paragraph window is marked with PG. So, let's press PG, okay? Now the paragraph movement has been activated. So, this is how to navigate within this window. If you look closely, you'll see some letters assigned, but they might not make much sense. It's here. There are L, B, and G in it. And you can move it by sympathizing with ortho. Press Alt and B to start a paragraph. Hold Alt, press B. Alt and B shows a selection. Alt and B moves to start. Practice Alt and L to move left. Alt and S for indent. Use arrows to move. Escape to exit. Press Alt plus B. Press them together. Press Alt, hold it, then press B. That's it. Press Alt plus P to select. Alt plus B moves to paragraph start. Try Alt plus L. It moves indent left. Alt plus S moves to indent. Use arrow keys to move. Press Escape to exit. Press Alt plus B to start paragraph. Type 0.5. Now, please try pressing Alt and P. You should see that I'm using a selection. If you press Alt and B, you can move to the beginning of a paragraph, and that's good. Now, let's practice a few more. Next, let's do Alt and L. Alt and L will move the indent to the left. Then, if you press Alt and S, you can move to the indent area. You can also move with the arrow keys. If you want to exit this, just press Escape. You can go back. So let's press Alt and B again to move to the beginning of the paragraph and type 0.5. And you can input the OK button with the Enter key. I didn't explain this, but you can input OK with the Enter key. Now it's all set. So, moving within the window can be done using the letters in parentheses along with the Alt key. And you can input the OK button with the Enter key. I didn't explain this, but you can input OK with the Enter key. Now it's all set up. So, you can move within the window using the letters in parentheses, along with the Alt key. Alright, I've shown you all the necessary operations, so now you can do everything using the mouse and keyboard. Shall we give it a try? I'll do a quick round myself first. First, let's start with headings. Press Alt, H, then L to pop up the menu. Remember the letters to press. Next is heading 3. Press Alt, H, L. You can repeat actions with F4, but practice doing it manually. F4 repeats the last action, which is efficient, but for practice, go step by step. Let's go for heading 3. By the way, you can repeat the last action you did by pressing F4. But since we're practicing, please try to do it multiple times without using that. When you press the F4 key, it will repeat the last action you did, which can be efficient, but for practice, please go through each step, one by one. Now, let's move on to headings. To set a heading, you can go ahead and input this even before it shows up. Since home is H, you can just press Alt and H right away. It's not simultaneous, it's in order. So, with this, we've set the heading. Next is the list. For the list, press 5 while holding Shift, and then press the down arrow 3 times to select, and then press Alt, H, and N to choose the numbering. Next, let's insert a table. Open Excel. You can also move using the Shift key, along with the up and down arrow keys. Or, if you have the capacity to remember, it's Control A. You can select everything at once with Alt and A. So, select with Control A and then copy. So open Word. Paste it. Alt plus H to text, then paste. Hold Shift, select upwards. If too far, extra line break included. Hold Shift, press right arrow to deselect. If extra line break, go back 1 with right arrow while holding Shift. Deleting top part leaves extra line, unnecessary. Hold Shift, press right arrow to deselect. If extra line break, go back 1 with right arrow while holding Shift. Press Alt to open Insert tab. The line break mark will also be included. So please hold Shift and press the right arrow key. This will deselect that selection. If you do it again, you can select from here by holding Shift and pressing 1, 2, 3, or 4 times. But since there's an extra line break included, you need to go back 1 by pressing the right arrow while holding Shift. And from here, you can continue. That's it. Press Alt to open the Insert tab. Now, for the Insert tab, for the table, it's V to convert the string into a table. Press V and then Enter. If you want to add a design, press Alt again. And for the table design, it's JT, so press JT and then S. It might be a bit fast, but I'm just following along. So select the design table using the letters displayed above and press Enter. Next, let's move on to text alignment. First, the leading work is in the center. It says AC of Alt H, so select 2 lines with AC. And it says AR of Alt H, so it's AR. This is an abbreviation for align center, and align right. So these letters have meanings. Consider memorizing the ones you often use. The N stands for number, likely, and for fonts, usually F. Each of these has a meaning, and if you remember these, you operate faster. To center align, do it there. Do it without thinking. I just said Alt HAC really quickly. Fonts are F and so on, so there is a meaning to it. It might be faster to remember each of them, and the ones you use often. And once you remember them, you can operate them pretty quickly. For example, if you want to center a line, you do it there. You can do it, right? Alt-H-A-C, spacing before and between paragraphs. Alt-H, then PG. If you memorize it like this, you'll really grasp it well. Now, moving on to the next part. Next, it's about the spacing before paragraphs and the spacing between paragraphs. Move over and hit Alt-H, then PG, and this pops up. Do you remember? It says B for the spacing before the paragraph. It's Alt while pressing B, and then Alt-P. So hit enter for 0.5. Alt H, PG, Alt B, golden F, Alt F for 0.5. The settings are okay. Next, it's Alt H, PG, Alt B. Well, it's golden F. After the paragraph, it's alto F 0.5. By the way, Alt A and PG is an abbreviation for paragraph. It's PNG for paragraph, right? You might want to memorize this window because it's super useful. It's Alt H, PG for the paragraph in the Home tab. Next, left indent it. You can select while holding Shift, or select and then press Alt H, PG for indent, and for the left indent, it's Alt L. Next, select again and press Alt H, PG, then Alt L for the second line. It's Alt H, PG, then Alt L. Now for the first line, we need to indent it. Press Alt H, PG, then Alt S to choose indent and hit enter. And finally, here we are. It's Alt H, PG, then L. Next, let's indent the first line. Press Alt H, PG, then Alt S to select indent and hit enter. Finally, let's change the style. In future promotional strategies, while shifting the entire industry, select the whole thing and then press Alt H for the font color, which is FC, and choose your preferred color. And for Alt HL, I'm sorry, I didn't mention right clicking. So, how do you right click? It's Shift plus F10, Shift plus F10. Oh, you can always right click. Press function 10 while holding Shift. If you think you can't memorize this, it's totally fine to just use the right click with your mouse. So, if you select and hit enter to match the selection activity, that's it, you're all set. So, that's all I have to say. But you can also set headings using Control 2, like I mentioned earlier, so that's totally fine too. I just find it easier to follow the Alt shortcuts. Even if it's an operation you don't use often, as long as you remember, oh, that was in the Home tab, you can trace it back. And if you make a mistake, like if you meant to be in the Insert tab, but accidentally pressed H and opened the Home tab, just hit Escape to go back one step. So definitely give these keyboard shortcuts a try. Since we're focusing on this code, I really want you to master it. But first, let's start with mouse operations. Make sure you know where everything is, and once you have a good grasp of the basic operations and where things are, then challenge yourself with keyboard shortcuts too. Since we have this code, I really want you to master it. But first, let's start with mouse operations. So make sure you know where everything is, and once you have a good grasp of the basic operations, then give keyboard shortcuts a try. And that wraps it up